My spoiled sister ruined my childhood. When I was 14 years old, the dynamics within my family were heavily skewed by the excessive favoritism my parents showed towards my younger sister, who was around 6 years younger than me. This favoritism wasn't just a subtle undercurrent in our family life. It was the driving force behind nearly every decision and interaction. My parents seemed to have dedicated their entire focus to her, often at the expense of my own needs and desires. This obsession with her well-being led to a household environment where her wants and needs always took precedence over mine. One of the most glaring examples of this favoritism occurred when I was 11 years old. For months, I had been eagerly anticipating getting a Nintendo 3DS for my 12th birthday. I spent countless hours pleading with my parents, explaining how much it would mean to me and how I had been dreaming of it for a long time. After what felt like an eternity of begging, my parents finally agreed and bought me the 3DS. My excitement was palpable as I unwrapped it and immediately began to enjoy my new gaming device. However, this joy was short-lived. Just a few days after receiving the 3DS, my parents informed me of a new rule. I was required to share it with my sister whenever she wanted. They made it clear that if I didn't comply, they would take it away from me. As you can imagine, the 3DS was taken from me frequently and handed over to my sister. The constant upheaval and the feeling of having something I was meant to enjoy being used as a bargaining chip were deeply frustrating. The situation escalated dramatically during one of my aunt's visits. She happened to be at our house when my parents, as usual, forcibly took the 3DS from my hands and gave it to my sister. My aunt was visibly shocked and furious at what she saw as blatant favoritism. She confronted my parents with a level of indignation that left no room for misunderstanding. The ensuing argument was heated, and my aunt's frustration was evident. After her intervention, my parents begrudgingly returned the 3DS to me. However, their anger towards my aunt was palpable, and they blamed me for causing the commotion once she left. To placate my sister and diffuse the tension, my parents quickly went out and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for her. This act of indulgence made it clear that their priority was to keep her happy. Regardless of the impact on me, the favoritism wasn't limited to just material possessions. It extended to how my sister behaved in social situations, particularly at other children's birthday parties. She had a tendency to throw tantrums if a party wasn't centered around her. She would complain if she wasn't given gifts or if she wasn't allowed to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents, ever eager to avoid a scene, would often give in to her demands, leading to us being asked to leave several parties. This pattern of behavior eventually resulted in other kids at her school stopping inviting her to their birthday celebrations. My sister's consistent drama and the resulting chaos had made her a pariah in her social circle. For me, my birthdays were one of the few times when I felt I could have something that was solely about me. Given that so much of my life seemed to revolve around accommodating my sister's needs, these rare occasions were incredibly special. The year before the incident I'm about to describe, my parents had completely overshadowed my 13th birthday by focusing on my sister. They even suggested that she blow out my candles because she was upset. I was adamant about wanting to blow out my own candles and refused their suggestion. My parents initially called me a spoiled brat until my aunt stepped in. She scolded them for their blatant favoritism and made it clear how much they were neglecting my feelings. The other adults at the party were visibly uncomfortable with the situation, and my parents promised never to ask me to let my sister blow out my candles again. Despite their promise, their actions felt insincere, and they merely went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt ended up taking over the coordination and ensuring that the event went smoothly. When my 14th birthday approached, my parents once again made a decision that would impact me profoundly. A few weeks before my birthday, they informed me that while I would still receive some gifts and a small cake, they were canceling my birthday party to avoid any potential meltdowns from my sister. I was devastated and felt that my feelings were being disregarded. I expressed my disappointment, but my parents showed little empathy. They seemed to brush off my concerns as though they were insignificant compared to my sister's needs. Frustrated and heartbroken, I decided to confide in my friends, teachers, and even my school counselor about what was happening. The responses I received were overwhelmingly supportive. People were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration and empathy. The vice principal even reached out to offer me comfort and support. The story quickly spread through social media, leading to a significant backlash against my parents. Faced with mounting pressure, my parents grounded me and tried to gaslight me into believing I was the problem for sharing my situation. Despite their attempts to manipulate the narrative, the pressure from their friends and other parents continued to build, leading to my early release from grounding. My dad came into my room, tersely informed me that my grounding was over, and left without further explanation or apology. For a while, I believed that my birthday party was still canceled because there was no mention of any changes. My sister, seizing the opportunity, took great delight in the fact that she thought I wouldn't get to celebrate. However, to my surprise, my parents eventually organized a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant by the end of the 2 weeks. They claimed that this was their plan all along, but it was clear that this was a last-minute attempt to salvage their reputation. The surprise party was hastily arranged, and it was evident that they had spent a considerable amount of money on it. I had a fantastic time with my friends, enjoyed a wonderful dinner, and received the PS4 game system I had been eagerly wanting. My dad's look of dismay as he handed over the gift made it clear that the party had been organized under pressure and at the last minute. My sister, as expected, reacted with a dramatic outburst over the surprise party. With so many of my friends and their parents present, my parents were finally forced to take a stand. My sister attempted to push my cake off the table and threw a fit when she wasn't allowed to access the presents. For the first time in years, my sister was put in a timeout, and my mom had to stay with her to prevent any further disruptions. Despite this, my sister continued to try and reach the cake and presents, prompting my mom to take her to a nearby McDonald's play area to calm her down. I later learned that my mom spent over an hour trying to get my sister out of the play structure. My sister only left when she needed to use the bathroom, and even then, she tried to return to the play area immediately. After this incident, my parents never attempted to cancel my birthday parties again while I was still living at home. However, the subsequent celebrations were far less extravagant. For the remaining 4 years, my birthdays were held at a local pizza parlor, and the cake was always simple and lacked my name written on it. My aunt frequently criticized my parents for this, but they continued to claim that they forgot to have the cake decorated. I suspected that the real reason was that my sister refused to eat cake with someone else's name on it. Despite the less elaborate celebrations, having a day dedicated to me was a significant improvement compared to how my life otherwise revolved around my sister's needs. During these remaining birthdays, my sister would still create a fuss, leading my mom to take her elsewhere to calm her down. When I finally moved out at 18, my parents were left to manage my sister's behavior on their own. On her recent 14th birthday, she had a violent outburst when she didn't receive a PS5. Her tantrum was so severe that it caused extensive damage to the house. My parents appeared completely overwhelmed and exhausted when I last saw them. My aunt later mentioned that they had confided in her about their desire to send my sister to military or boarding school because they felt incapable of managing her behavior any longer. Unfortunately, they couldn't afford such an option. I couldn't help but feel a sense of ironic satisfaction knowing that my parents were finally facing the consequences of the way they had raised my sister. The situation had come full circle, and the lavish indulgence they had shown her was now causing problems that they were ill-equipped to handle. The once unquestioned authority they had enjoyed was now undermined by the very person they had tried so hard to appease. The extravagant treatment they had afforded her was now coming back to haunt them in ways they had never anticipated, and their attempts to control the fallout were failing miserably.